The story begins in the year 1899, when a monstrosity of a lighthouse was built in an island off Ireland. The weather and storms surrounding the area were lethal, and some say at the worst of times there would be waves 100 feet high. This lighthouse had to have people working there, but it was taken into account when building the lighthouse that if they did have one person living there, they would be so lonely and it would affect them so much being isolated, it would drive them mad. But if there were two, then them being together out in the middle of nowhere, it could drive them to kill each other. So that is what made it clear there would be 3 people working in the lighthouse. It went according to plan until 1900, when a photographer and his assistant and a very skilled sailor sailed out to the island, so the photographer could take photos of the lighthouse keepers and the lighthouse and island. It was then that everything got very strange, as they turned every stone in the island, looking all over for the 3 men, but couldn't find a trace of them. It was like they disappeared into thin air. It was not like them to have been swept away by being outside, as they usually always would go inside and bolt the door and stay in when it became evening, as they knew how dangerous the weather could get. The photographer was thinking of writing a story about the strange disappearance when suddenly he realized there was a crumpled up piece of paper in the room that he hadn't noticed before. He opened the paper and it had written on it, "I will help you solve the mystery of the lighthouse keepers and their fate. Wait outside the lighthouse at 4 p.m. The photographer was standing outside the lighthouse, hoping it was the right part, as it was so big. He was really anxious to find out who wrote the note and what they would say. There was no one on the island when they went looking, and they looked everywhere. Plus the island wasn't that big. Suddenly it got very stormy, and he could see a huge wall of water coming straight for him. It was then he realized that he wasn't only going to learn how the men died, but die exactly the same way. Just before the wave hit him, he saw the 3 ghosts of the men right in front of him. Mary was very worried about her 6-year-old daughter Linda. She just sits around for hours and hours drawing, and that might not be so bad, but the drawings she did were always of what looked like monsters or demons. They reminded her of what you'd see kids draw in horror movies. She didn't really pay much attention to it until one day out in the garden, she saw her daughter Linda digging a hole. Initially, Mary thought Linda was playing a game of gardening or something, but she got a start when she saw Linda's doll lying in the hole. She asked her daughter why she was burying her doll, and Linda replied, "Because the boogeyman told her." Mary felt a shiver run through her when she heard her daughter say such a weird thing, but she dismissed it, putting it down to maybe a few kids in school were talking about the boogeyman. The next day, Mary saw a teddy bear in a hole in the garden that Linda dug. Mary got angry this time and said, "Linda, don't be so bad bringing that poor teddy out here and putting it in a hole in the garden." Linda got angry and said, But the boogeyman told me. Mary grabbed the teddy bear from her and shouted to her go into her room. The next day Mary was out in the garden and she was pleased to see Linda was just playing and looked happy. Mary continued gardening when suddenly she felt something hit her in the back of her head. When she came around, she could see Linda looking down at her. Mary was horrified and said, "Sweetie, what are you doing?" Linda lifted up a shovel and said, "I'm going to bury you in the hole, silly." Mary shouted, "No, no, no," as the shovel hit her head. Linda smiled and said, "But the boogeyman says yes." My name is Alan. I always loved acting, and every year in my school I used to get a role in the local play. I loved playing the main part, but to be honest, any part I loved playing. I was reading through my local newspaper one day when I spotted an ad for an audition for a TV show. I was so excited about it. An audition in my very own town for a TV show. It was so attractive to me. I rang the number as soon as I got my confidence up. The lady on the phone took my details and then gave me an email to email a short video of me playing any role. I chose to send her the best role I could think of, which was a play I did last summer. I waited a whole week and got no reply. I was about to lose hope when finally my phone rang and I was asked to come to an audition which was happening on Saturday. They emailed me the script. I read through it. The role was me walking up to a guy, asking him what advice he would give me on my wife cheating and act really upset. I practiced in front of the mirror for about an hour, making up different dialogue that would suit the role. Finally, the day came for the audition, and I was nervous, but I just had to park the nerves and realise this is what I always wanted. There were 3 people I assumed were judges sitting in the theatre, and a man on stage. As soon as I walked in, the man said, "Just in time, Alan, is it?" I said yes. When I went up on stage, he said, "Give it your best performance. Are you ready?" I said, "Yes, I'm as ready as I ever will be," and gave a smile. I jumped back with fear when the man pulled out a knife and started screaming. I was trying to run from him and he grabbed me. I looked into the audience and the 3 people were smiling. I felt sick, knowing that if I didn't do something, he would kill me. He started shouting hysterically like a madman and raised the knife again. I pulled him back and he fell off the stage. It was like I could hear a crack as his head hit the floor hard and there was a pool of blood. I was on stage, frozen in fear. The 3 people started screaming. I wondered why they brought me here to an audition to kill me. They all got together and held me, while one rang the police. I kept screaming, "Let me go, let me go." I said he was trying to kill me. One of the men shouted, "You bloody madman, you know that was the role you were meant to play. I sent it in your email." A few minutes later, when the police arrived, I showed them my phone and the email that was sent. It was then the man realised he had sent me the wrong script. The man I just killed, who I thought was trying to kill me, was only acting out a role that was in the script I was meant to have received. He never had any intention of killing me, and the knife wasn't even real. But the police had confirmed even before the email was read, the man I pushed had died from the impact when his head hit the floor. Hello, this story is about a boy called Jason who one day had an argument about whether real magic does or doesn't exist. Jason told his friend Barry that it was just all tricks, but none of it was real magic. But Barry disagreed completely. Jason said, "You really expect me to believe that there are magicians that can really disappear and really fly from one city to the next by just flying like Superman?" Barry said, "I don't know what type of magic magicians can do, but I just know that real magic exists." Jason said, "Okay, so if you're so convinced real magic exists, why don't you just show me a real magician? Anyone?" Barry said, "Actually, I do. I can let you meet a real magician. Just don't let him know you don't believe in real magic. Don't ask why, just trust me. He doesn't take kindly to skeptics, especially when they're skeptical of him." 2 days later, they arrived at this fast food restaurant, and Barry was introduced to the chef, who was called the Magical Chef by his friend. The Magical Chef said, "Well, hi there. I don't usually talk about magic to people I don't know, but your friend there, Barry, is a great friend of mine, and any friend of Barry is a friend of mine." Jason smiled and said, "Well, I don't really believe in magic, but..." Barry coughed, as if to remind Jason not to let the Magical Chef know Jason doesn't believe in real magic. The chef said, "I'll get your usual, Barry, and I'll get your friend my speciality 4 Seasons pizza." The chef was making the pizza, with his blood boiling, knowing Jason didn't believe in real magic. He told himself he would teach him a lesson, that magic was real. When the pizza arrived, Jason ate it like it was the first meal he had in a week. When he walked home that evening alone, it got really sunny, like a scorching hot summer's day, which was strange because just minutes ago it was a nice spring day, but kind of cold. It suddenly got very warm, and the sun started shining like a really hot summer's day. Then a few minutes later he was passing trees, and all the leaves were falling off them with the wind as if it just turned to autumn. Then suddenly it started snowing, like it was the middle of the winter. He was freaked out thinking of the name of the pizza, 4 Seasons, and wondered, was that the chef's magic? He rang his friend, and his friend told him, "I'm not going to explain nothing more to you, except that the chef is a true magician, like I said, because magic is real. I told you this all along. You just need to believe, and I told you, if he knows you don't believe his magic is real, if he is in a bad mood, he is liable to do anything. I've heard stories." A few days later, Jason went into a restaurant in his town. He got a flyer from a person on the street with a voucher for a free dessert with the meal. After his meal, he realized the free dessert was a delicious ice cream. He enjoyed every bite of it. The waitress said to Jason, "You sure enjoyed that, I can see." Jason froze when he realized it was the Magical Chef, and the dessert was called Death by Chocolate. He wondered, did the chef poison the ice cream? Thankfully, he felt fine. Jason was walking home when suddenly an ice cream truck ran him over and killed him. Tom, Michael and Sam were watching the Squid Game in awe. They were familiar playing the squid game, the regular game, without the crazy stuff in the show. They were in awe of the colours used in the show and the action. Their parents wouldn't let them watch the show, which they all thought was lame because they all were 13. Tom said to Michael and Sam, "I have such an awesome idea. Why don't we play a game like they do in that show?" Sam turned to him and said, "Have you completely lost your mind? What next? You're going to pull out a gun and give us one each to see who shoots the other?" Tom replied, No, listen, I have a really great idea. We can set up a bridge across the building's roof. My dad has a cool rope bridge we can use. All I need to do is throw it over from one roof to the next and tie it onto a pole. Whoever runs to the other side first wins, but whoever doesn't, well, then the person who's watching will cut the rope as soon as the winner is over. My dad has a cutting device that will cut it in seconds, and before ye ask, no, nobody's going to get killed. I have a bouncy safety thing my dad uses for the circus acts he does. Sam said, "That actually sounds pretty awesome, but who is going to cut the rope?" Tom said, "We will draw for it." A few minutes later they all drew what position they would play out of a jar, and Tom drew run, Michael drew run, and Sam drew watch and cut the rope. Michael said, "I don't want to play this game, it's stupid." Tom said in a mocking way, "Why, are you scared you're going to fall off and kill yourself from falling on a bouncy cushion cheese that is used in my dad's circus the whole time? You won't even hurt your leg if you fall even from that height." Michael was mad at his comments, and eventually Sam changed with him and decided to run instead of cutting the rope. When the game began, Sam and Tom both ran as fast as they could across the bridge. Michael thought he'd teach them a lesson and cut the rope to them both fall, knowing they wouldn't die anyway from falling on the bouncy safety cushion. As they reached the middle, he smiled as he cut the rope and then watched them scream as they fell. But his smile quickly changed when he heard a loud thud from below and people screaming. He looked down and had realised somehow the air must have escaped the cushion, and he realised his two friends fell to their death and were now lying dead in a pool of blood. Thanks for watching The Assassin Rapper, and if you enjoy the content, then make sure to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified of new content.